The moment had finally arrived. Under the bright lights of the MGM Grand Garden Arena, the roar of 13,000 fans filled the air with a fever that only one man can ignite: Manny Pacquiao. Flags waved, chants erupted, and an electric pulse ran through the building as the 46-year-old legend stepped into the ring. Once more, this wasn't just a nostalgia trip or a cash grab. Pacquiao wasn't here to collect a check and bow out quietly. No, he was back to prove a point. He was back to show that he could still go toe-to-toe with the best in the world. Standing across from him was Mario Barrios, a 30-year-old welterweight champion in his prime. Tall, composed, and carrying the WBC belt. Barrios represented everything Pacquiao had already conquered throughout his storied career: youth, hunger, and championship-level talent. Most doubted Pacquiao could handle the speed and size of a man 16 years younger. But Manny didn't care. He'd heard it all before. This fight wasn't just about a belt, it was about pride, legacy, and rewriting the story one more time. From the moment the opening bell rang, it was clear this wasn't just another exhibition. Pacquiao looked sharp. His footwork was on point, bouncing lightly, slipping in and out of range like it was 2010 again. His hands still lightning. He caught Barrios clean with a quick 1-2, pivoted away, and the crowd responded with thunderous cheers. Barrios tried to establish his jab, using his reach to keep Pacquiao at bay. But Manny wasn't giving him time to settle. His movements were crisp, his timing surgical. The second round saw Pacquiao getting into rhythm. He began slipping under Barrios' jab and tagging him to the body with short hooks, mixing in his signature straight left. Barrios stayed disciplined, sticking to his strategy. But there was a visible hesitation. Pacquiao's angles were throwing him off. Every time Barrios tried to respond with a combo, Manny had already shifted out of range or come back with a counter. That left the younger champion guessing by rounds 3 and 4. The energy inside the arena had shifted from excited to electric. Pacquiao was in full control. His footwork was dazzling. He circled and cut angles with ease, landing sharp combinations that snapped Barrios' head back. At one point in round 4, he backed Barrios into a corner and unleashed a beautiful 5-punch flurry that had the entire arena on its feet. Barrios, overwhelmed, had no choice but to clinch. This wasn't a fight. It was a showcase. The middle, rounds 5 through 8 were all Pacquiao. He was a machine, landing power shots with frightening consistency. His straight left hand found its home again and again, and he mixed in uppercuts that sliced through Barrios' guard. He controlled the tempo, dictated the action, and forced Barrios into retreat. Statistically, this is where Manny ran up the numbers. Most of his 81 power punches came during this stretch. It was vintage Pacquiao, relentless, explosive, and calculated. You could feel the crowd sensing something special. The energy was electric, and Manny fed off it. But Barrios wasn't ready to quit. To his credit, in round 9, he dug deep and adjusted. He upped his output, fired more combinations, and started getting busier with his jab. He wasn't landing anything major, but he was making it look competitive. Judges love activity, even if most punches hit gloves, and Barrios' flurry in the later rounds started turning heads. Manny still had his moments, clean counters and timely body shots, but his pace dipped just slightly. Rounds 10 through 12 saw Barrios take the reins, at least on the surface. He doubled his punch output, used his jab to keep Manny moving, and fired short rights behind it. Pacquiao, while still sharp, was clearly conserving energy. At 46, no one could blame him. Still, he reminded everyone he wasn't done. Every time Barrios threatened to pull ahead, Manny snapped a counter left that reignited the crowd. It was a war of wills, a battle of pride. Both men wanted it, but who wanted it more? When the final bell rang, Manny lifted his arms, smiling. He believed he'd done enough, and so did the crowd. The chants of Manny rang out louder than ever. Barrios stood across the ring, gloves down, breathing heavily. His expression was unreadable. Most in attendance felt Pacquiao had edged it, especially with his mid-round dominance. The fans were bracing for a Pacquiao decision victory. And then, the announcement. The scorecards were read aloud. A majority draw. Just like that, the air was sucked out of the room. The crowd erupted, but not in celebration. Boos rained down. Shock gave way to frustration. Fans who had just moments before been cheering were now shaking their heads, stunned and angry. Manny echoed once more, but this time it was a protest. Pacquiao had, in many eyes, clearly won. He had dictated the middle rounds, landed cleaner shots, and pushed the action. Yet the result was a draw, which meant Barrios retained his WBC title. Pacquiao, always the gentleman, accepted the decision with grace. He congratulated Barrios and thanked the fans, but behind his smile, there was a flicker of disbelief. A glance toward his corner spoke volumes, quiet frustration, perhaps even disappointment. He later said he believed he'd won, but gave credit to Barrios for a tough fight. Barrios stayed composed in victory, or rather, in survival. He praised Pacquiao's performance and said he felt the fight was close, but he didn't celebrate. He knew what the crowd thought. He knew how it looked. The judging was immediately the center of attention. Believe they were hearing. Many argued Barrios' late rally wasn't enough to undo the damage Manny did in the heart of the fight. The volume was there, sure, but where was the quality? Veteran voices in boxing didn't hold back. Sean Porter, usually measured and respectful, slammed the judges, calling the decision incompetent. He argued that Barrios didn't do enough early on, and that Pacquiao's control of the fight should have earned him the win. Staple in boxing journalism called the result a disgrace, saying it undermined fan trust. His words spread like wildfire online. Fighters joined in. Shocker Stevenson tweeted a single word, crazy, and it said more than a full breakdown ever could. Other pros posted their own scorecards, and nearly all had Pacquiao winning, most by 115 to 113 or 116 to 112. It wasn't just about the numbers, it was about what they saw with their own eyes. The cleaner punches, the ring generalship, the aggression, even. During the live broadcast, the commentators couldn't hide their frustration. One noted that while Barrios looked busy in the later rounds, most of his shots were blocked or deflected. Meanwhile, Pacquiao's punches were snapping Barrios's. Head back. The visual impact was clear, yet somehow the judges didn't agree. Online, the backlash exploded. Twitter, Reddit, Instagram, every platform was filled with fans venting their outrage. Hashtags like #PACQUIO robbed and #boxing corruption climbed the trending charts. Clip after clip showed Pacquiao landing clean combinations. One video montage of his dominant mid-rounds racked up over 1 million views in hours. The comment sections were brutal, people calling it one of the worst decisions in recent memory. Inside the MGM Grand, fans lingered long after the final bell. Many were waving their arms, booing, still chanting for Pacquiao. The mood was toxic. For a moment, the joy of watching a legend deliver one more vintage performance was replaced by bitterness. The debate spilled into post-fight discussions. Analysts asked the hard questions. What matters more, volume or quality? Sure, Barrios threw more, but Pacquiao landed better. The numbers backed it up. Barrios landed 120 total punches. Pacquiao landed 101. But Pacquiao landed 81 power punches to Barrios' 75. And more importantly, Pacquiao's punches were cleaner and more effective. Judges, it seemed, rewarded activity over accuracy. The consensus among experts was clear: Pacquiao had done enough to win. Not just survive, but win decisively. Porter put it bluntly: Barrios didn't start fighting until the 9th round. That's too late in a title fight. Dan Rafael echoed that sentiment. If your punches aren't landing clean, you're not winning rounds. It was a familiar story in boxing. One fighter does the work, another gets the benefit of the doubt. The noise didn't stop after the broadcast. In fact, it only got louder. As the dust settled, the question emerged: will there be a rematch? Porter led the calls for it, saying Pacquiao deserved the chance to finish the job. Manny, despite the disappointing decision, didn't say no. He said he believed he won and would talk with his team about what's next. His tone was calm, but you could hear it. He's not done. Barrios, sensing the backlash, left the door open. He acknowledged the fight was closer than expected and said he'd be willing to run it back if the fans wanted it, judging by the chorus of boos during his post-fight interview. The fans absolutely do. And who could blame them? Pacquiao turned back the clock in that ring. He did what no one thought he could. At 46, after 4 years away, he went toe-to-toe with a world champion and arguably won. That kind of performance deserves resolution, not confusion. Now it's up to the promoters, the networks, and the fighters. A rematch would draw massive interest and money. Controversy always sells. And this is red hot. If there's one thing boxing needs, it's clarity. And if there's one man who's earned another shot, it's Manny Pacquiao.